This is your content. It's an amorphous blob of text and HTML, images, metadata, and a bunch of other stuff that you don't even know what it is. And this is your field set. It's beautiful, it's elegant, it's uniform, it's out of focus. So what you do is you just take your content and you jam it through. Okay, but seriously, it's a good analogy. Field sets are a tool used by your control panel to create publish forms. They are like the filter, like the structure that you push content through. They establish your content model. Essentially, they're a schema that defines the fields, the data types, and the interface used to manage it. And before we go any further, it's worth mentioning right here up front that field sets are purely a control panel convention. They don't affect the output of your site. They don't affect the front end parts, just the control panel interfaces, okay? So with that being said, let's jump into the control panel and let's start looking at field sets. First, we'll look at a collection entry without a field set defined, and then we'll look at a fully fleshed out one. Here you're looking at a title field, a content field, your slug, and a date, and a publish status. This is the core default field set. If you don't define anything, this is what you're gonna get. Basically, this mimics the flat file writing experience. So if you're somebody like us a lot of the time who likes to work with the files themselves, write your YAML front matter, write a bunch of markdown in your content section, this is that core experience. Once you start defining fields, you can customize this any way you want. So assume you've done that, you can have something more like this, where you've got that title field, then you've got the section header, you've got a subtitle, assets field, color fields, select boxes. This is a barred field type that lets you have this really nice interplay between writing and inserting extra fields into your content, much like medium.com. It's pretty powerful. You can control this however you want with a field set. And so let's dive into what it takes to create one. Now, if you want to create a field set in the control panel, you're going to come over to this field sets section under configure. Now, since we made changes to this content, it's going to ask if we want to leave. We do. Don't need to save that. Here you'll see field sets that exist already. We're going to go ahead and create a new one. Now, give it a title. In this case, we'll call it, I don't know, news. And then you create a handle that you're going to use in your settings and templates. Basically a slug for your field set. The create title lets you customize that button that says make a new something. So we can call this news article. And then in those buttons in the collection area, if that's where you're using it, it'll say make a new or create a new news article. If you want to hide it, it will stop, or Statamic will stop suggesting it when you're creating new things, like new pages. This is useful if you have a field set that you'll want to use only on one page and you don't want it to be reused anywhere. If you hide it, the control panel will never show that to you. Now down here, we'll come to this fields in just a second. Down here are the taxonomies. Any taxonomies that exist in your site can be attached to this field set or not. We're going to go ahead and just turn that off for now. And that way we don't need to worry about that. We'll cover it in another video. Now we get to create some fields. In this dropdown is a list of all the field types that are built into the site, whether they're Statamic defaults, which is all we're looking at right here, or third-party field types. We'll start with something simple, like a markdown field. Pick it, click plus, and then we get this configure dialog. So maybe we're going to call this summary. We want that to be full width. You can add some instructions here. You can set up validation. You can set a default value. And then you can configure any conditions, which is a method of like hiding fields until the user takes action. We'll keep this simple for now. We'll make a couple of basic fields. So we've got summary, then maybe we'll make another markdown field called content, and maybe a select box called type, like type of news. Okay, we'll save that. And now if we're gonna come into, we'll make a quick collection so we can integrate this. News, order, date, using the article, news field set, and the route will be news/slug. Now when we create a new entry in the news collection, you can see the fields that we've set up here. Summary, content type. Now we didn't set any options on the type, so let's come back to the field sets and news. Let's go to that select field and we'll edit it. Down here, you've got options. So a select box is not worth anything unless there's something to select. So we can add value and text here. Let's do simple article, and fancy. The value is what's going to be saved in your YAML file, and the text is the label that you're going to see in the select box. Save that, come back, refresh. Now we have these options. Now let's spice this up a little bit. Let's add some conditional fields. Let's have an assets field, or maybe we want to have a photo gallery. And we'll call this gallery. And we'll make this conditional when the type field equals fancy. We'll save that, come back to our article, refresh. Now we can have fake news with a summary and some content. And if we want to be simple, it's simple. If we want it to be fancy, now we get a gallery. And you can add as many fields and conditions as you want and make this editor experience as simple as possible for your content editors. And that's up to you how you can configure that. You don't have to use conditions. It's up to you. All right, we're going to do two more things in this video. The first is show you how to make your field sets more reusable, to dry them up, right? Don't repeat yourself. We'll go back to field sets. We'll create a new one, and a really common pattern or use case for this is like SEO metadata. So we'll create one called SEO metadata, and we'll just call this the handle meta. We're going to hide that because we're going to make this a partial that we're going to inject into other field sets. So we'll turn off taxonomies, and then we're going to add essentially a bunch of text fields. We'll keep it really simple, but you can customize this as far as you want. So we'll have like meta title and meta description and meta tags. Actually, meta tags would be better off as a tags field set, or field type rather. Meta tags. We'll save that. We'll go back to our field sets, news, and then we're going to add a partial field type. When you add a partial field, it's going to ask you which field set you want to include. We'll include the SEO metadata. And this doesn't matter what you call this field because it's going to be replaced with the contents of that metadata. But we'll just call it meta so that we can see it in the interface here. And maybe we want these to be first. All right, let's save. Let's go back to our news article. And now we've got meta title, meta description, meta tags in there automatically. Now you can go back to your field sets and include this in all of your field sets if you like. So like article, we can add another partial over here and include SEO metadata. And put that at the top. It's important to note that partial field sets only apply to the top level fields. You can't use partial field sets inside what we call meta field types, like grids, bards, and replicators, which are a field type that include other field types. It's a very complicated thing. Maybe someday we'll support it, but right now we don't. So just keep that in mind. Finally, last thing I want to cover is managing field sets in the YAML. This is actually my preferred method of doing it. I find it to be a little bit quicker than going through the interface. However, it does mean you literally have to memorize all of the different field types and all of their options, which you can do in the documentation. They're all grouped in here. If you go down to field types, the entire list of field types is on the side. You've got all the different options here. So if you want to reference the docs and work in that YAML, feel free. Once you memorize it, it is faster. You can copy and paste from other sites or other field sets, but it doesn't really let you explore new options. You're gonna have to use the documentation for that. So That being said, field sets, the YAML files are stored in site, settings, field sets, and each field set has a YAML file. So we created this news one. You can see title, create title, and then fields. This is the field definition. Each key inside this is a field type. So we've got meta, summary, content, and they each share a couple of basic things. Type is select. Then you've got the display, which is the label. You pass the options in. And each field type has its own custom settings and different things that you can set. So using the documentation, you can totally assemble these things, copy and paste them into another field set, have a boilerplate or like a starter kit full of field sets, share them, make GitHub gists out of them. Really flexible. I love doing this in YAML. But again, there's nothing wrong with using the control panel. It is nice to not have to memorize anything. So hopefully this is informative, and go build the craziest field sets you can imagine. You can do it. I believe in you.